to ship a producer car there. We'll take care of that for you. We are doing business with those companies, and we will accept the delivery of the producer cars. We will also take the risks that that producer cars can introduce in terms of the predictability of the supply chain. Because we've got such a big program, we can accommodate some of the great uncertainty and other things that come along with producer cars, and we think we can accommodate that. And we also recognize the value that producer cars contribute to the entire system, not just for the producer car shippers who are saving some direct costs on those particular shipments, but also increasing the competitiveness of the rest of the system. Those of us who benefit from trucking premiums and other competitive things that the grain companies are offering, some of that is being offered because there are alternatives like producer cars for farmers to use. The last point I want to make on the how we use the single desk to make more money for farmers is about pricing directly to customers. And I want to give you, I'm going to take you through an example here of the sales plan that we were looking at for high protein, high quality Canada Western Red Spring wheat in January of 2009. And the same story would apply whatever time period you look at. But these would be the actual sales that we were looking at in January of 2009. This first slide is the volumes, and the second slide I'm going to show you is the actual prices that we were looking at for our sales. In terms of the volume, we have we use our knowledge of customers and their potential demand and the likely supply from our competitors to estimate what each customer is going to buy from us or be willing to buy from us over the course of the year. So as you look down this particular table, we've got customers like, and this is aggregated up to a country level. We have individual customers in Japan and elsewhere, but the country of Japan, we estimated at that point in time that we were going to sell about 835,000 tons of Canada Western Red Spring over the course of the year. In January, about half of this would be sold, and about half would still be necessary to sell for the rest of the year. You go down the list of all the other countries that we would sell to, and the list is longer than this. We've just selected a few for examples. And we compare that against the total supplies that we have available. And this year, we estimated we had about 6.7 million tons of high protein, high quality CWRS to sell. If you add up the numbers here, you get up to a little over 4 million tons. So just in these particular markets, we would not be able to sell the entire crop into those markets. And that's an important point I'll make on the next slide. So this next slide lists the same countries and indicates the price that we estimated we could achieve on sales made on that particular day in January. And these prices have all been adjusted so that they're all comparable. So you can think of them as being the same price on your farm for a bunch of different destinations for the same quality of wheat. So what I think it's very important to understand as I give this example, that if you were controlling the entire supply of Canada Western Red Spring wheat for Western Canada, you looking at all of these markets would make $26 a ton more by selling to Japan than selling to Malaysia. So that's a real number back to your farm. That selling to Japan makes you $26 a ton more going to Japan rather than Malaysia. And you can make similar calculations for the rest. The reason those differences exist is that there's a different willingness to pay in every one of the markets that we sell to. Some customers place a really high value on Canadian wheat and the quality that goes behind it. It is a differentiated product from wheat from other origins. It's not completely unsubstitutable, but it's different. And so bakers, flour millers, noodle manufacturers in Japan really place a high value on the quality characteristics of Canada Western Red Spring wheat. The inherent quality characteristics, but also the uniformity and the consistency from shipment to shipment. We also face different freight costs going into Japan, ocean freight costs, compared to going to other markets and compared to our competitors. So if you're looking at Northern Asian markets, it's cheaper for us to ship to those countries than it is to ship to Southern Asian markets. and therefore we have more of an advantage compared to a country like Australia shipping into a market like Japan. So for a whole bunch of reasons, these customers are willing to pay different prices. We take advantage of that by pricing to each market individually on a landed basis. So we will charge on the same day very different prices for the same product going to a bunch of different markets. So the one point I want to make on this slide is that's something that you can only do effectively with a single desk. I'll try to get back to that slide. And it's probably helpful just to take you through what would happen if the single desk is gone, and in fact what happens in other markets where you don't have a single desk. If we switch from the system that we have today to one where there are even three grain companies, forget about there being 60 or 70,000 farmers, but if there are three grain companies exporting high protein, high quality Canada Western Red Spring wheat to the world instead of one single desk, let's say those three companies are operated by three of your current elected board members. So Alan is running one company. Alan knows that these customers are willing to pay this amount for this type of wheat. So Alan is going to try to take that Japanese market. He's going to try to accumulate enough spring wheat to supply the Japanese market, 800 and some thousand tons. Now, Cam is just as smart as Alan, and so Cam is also aware that these customers are willing to pay this amount of money. Remember, nothing's changed on the customer side. All we've changed is the marketing structure in Western Canada. So these customers are still willing to pay these amounts for hard red spring wheat. So Cam wants to also supply that Japanese market, and Bill wants to too. Bill is also just as smart as Alan. I would never differentiate between the three of them. So Bill is also going to try to sell his Canada Western Red Spring wheat into Japan. They still have 6.7 million tons that they have to market. You're still producing the same amount of spring wheat. So what's going to happen here? Japan only wants to buy 800 and some thousand tons. Alan and Cam and Bill all know that if they don't make their sale into Japan, then they're going to have to sell into one of these other markets. They might sell into Malaysia, they might sell into Thailand, or they might sell into the US. And remember, these are all comparable prices here. So all three of them be good marketers. Remember, this is not about how smart anybody is. This isn't saying that people who work at the Canadian Wheat Board are smarter than the people who work at Cargill. That's not the case. This is all about the marketing structure. So you change the structure, and all of a sudden you've got marketers who now are saying, hey, if we don't sell into Japan, we're going to have to sell into Malaysia. So we know that our competitors are going to try to get that Japanese sale, and they're going to try to charge $326. Well, I'll charge $325. The third guy says, well, I'm going to charge $324. You keep going through that process until you end up with one market clearing price that's going to be somewhere down near the bottom that will clear the supplies from Western Canada. So I realize that's kind of a long explanation, but it is something that happens as you move from a single desk to a competitive open market export system. It's very simple stuff, and it happens. It happened in Australia, and it will happen in from a customer perspective too. After doing business with them for 75 years, what do they say about this system from Canada? Do they complain about the prices that they're paying in some cases? They do. But they also rank the Canadian system high for product quality, cleanliness, and consistency, and for the service that they're receiving, not just from the CWB, but from the Canadian system. And if you rank all of these responses from all of our customers that we survey, you see that they rank quality and service high. They rank price low. They say that we're not competitive on price, but they rank value that they receive somewhere in the middle, and that's exactly where we want them to be. We don't want them to be too giddy about the value that they're getting from Canada, but we want them to be satisfied, and we've been happy with where we've ended up on the surveys. The only other points I want to make here is that there are some other things that this system does to provide a bit more money in your pockets than would exist otherwise. One is the guarantees that we have on the money that the Canadian Wheat Board borrows. We pay you either through the initial payment or a pricing option that you might take before customers pay us. There's always a time lag between the time you deliver and the time we get a check from the customer. We have to borrow that money in order to finance the payments to you. We borrow it at government guaranteed rates, which are generally a couple of percentage points lower than what any commercial company can borrow at. And so the financing of that inventory, which still is going to be a cost that you're going to have to pay in any system, no matter what the marketing structure is, the cost of financing that inventory is lower in this system because of the government guarantee. We also sell on credit to some customers. That credit is guaranteed to us at those same low interest rates, and we charge those customers commercial rates and make money on that particular business as well, which adds to the returns that you receive. And then the last thing that I'll suggest here is that you saw that we try to make some decisions about the timing of our sales during the year by marketing strategically. If you want to choose a different timing for the pricing of your grain, you can do that through the payment options that we offer. What we've tried to do is mimic the open market as much as we can in terms of the pricing options that we provide, but also provide cooling and a higher average price overall. So that's what we're trying to achieve with the single desk. When you add it all up, which is an interesting exercise to try to calculate these benefits over a period of a number of years and come up with a reasonable estimate. We've been fairly conservative in how we estimate those three main values of the single desk, and our number for that is that it's worth to farmers something over $500 million per year. Now that is a number that can deserve a lot of discussion and explanation, but it's certainly a very significant amount. So, Avis, I think we can take a couple of questions.
Agriculture producers, as well as the Vice President of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. Welcome on through. Yes, microphone one.
I'm Dale Fantan from Fair Cars. Gord, you mentioned producer cars, and a lot of us in this room know when we talk about producer car benefits. A lot of us in this room also know that the first short-line railway was started in Alberta a few years ago, and it's very successful. There's a lot of short-line railways in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Can you tell us what would happen if the single desk and wheat board were gone to producer cars and our loading and our facilities? Thank you.
Did everyone hear that question? It's a question on short lines and producer cars. What would happen to producer cars when the Canadian Wheat Board is gone?
Well, I won't presume to know exactly what's going to happen to all the producer car shipping facilities and your ability to ship producer cars, but I think it's relatively predictable. In order for you to ship a producer car to the port, you have to have a terminal that's willing to accept that. So what are the interests of the companies that own those port terminals? The interests of the companies that own those port terminals, who also own country elevators, is to ship as much grain as they can through those country elevators and generate the revenue that would for them. And so it's not saying that they have ulterior motives, but just their basic economic interests do not align with producer car shippers. And so I think it's relatively easy to predict that the opportunity to ship producer cars would be significantly less.
I think one other point that needs to be added as far as the future of producer cars is, while I think you will still have the right to load a producer car, which is guaranteed under the Canada Grain Act, will the savings that are involved in shipping that car, will they still be there? Just a real life example, 95 to 96% of all producer cars shipped are Canadian Wheat Board grains. and that's just not a mere coincidence. The fact is that there are savings when you ship a car of wheat or grains. Try and ship a car of canola, and the money's been taken out of it. Clearly, the grain companies are not interested in producer cars. They'd like you to put grain through their facilities, and the railways aren't particularly interested in spotting them either. So, to me, that's where the future of producer cars lies.